What was once the lightest building in Glasgow? And if it all kicks off, where's the best place to dodge the fallout? Find out now in this episode of Astonishing Glasgow. A few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of meeting the folks from the Govan Reminiscence group. So for this episode, I'm in the car and I'm heading back to Govan to visit a leading light of Glasgow's industrial architecture and a hole in the ground that has direct links to the Cold War. On a sunny day like this, I would much rather be out on my bike, but I am still recovering from knee surgery. So to make up for having half the number of working legs, I have doubled the number of working wheels. Now the building I'm heading off to see is one that I used to catch a glimpse of from the back of my dad's car as we came into Glasgow from the west on the M8. As it turns out, you no longer get a good view of the building from the motorway. Even in winter the trees are too thick. So I'm going to come off the motorway and drive along Shield Hall Road and we should get a better view as we approach it from the west. Shield Hall Road was the main road into Glasgow before the M8 was built. And yep, as expected, from here you definitely get a far better view of this Art Deco wonder, which I'll tell you more about once I find a parking space. Thankfully it didn't take me too long, and I'm quite close by, although I'm sure there were certainly some curtains twitching when they saw me parking my car and walking away. This building is called the Luma Towers, and is a residential and office building containing 43 apartments in the wings and office space in the tower. But the building went through a lot to get to its current state. Originally built in 1938 as a light bulb factory, the Art Deco design was picked to tie in with the Empire exhibition, which was held in Glasgow the same year in Bellahouston Park. In fact, I'm certain you would have been able to see this building from the top of the Tate Tower, the main feature of the Empire exhibition, which was dismantled at the outbreak of World War II. The British Luma Cooperative Electric Lamp Society Limited commissioned the building for their Glasgow headquarters. It's a good job the building's as long as it is, that way they can fit the British Luma Cooperative Electric Lamp Society on the sign at the front. The society was a joint venture between the Cooperative Society, the Scottish Cooperative Society and the Swedish Cooperative Union, whose own 1930s Luma factory in Stockholm has some similarities to Glasgow's Luma Tower. And the tower is the key feature. It always reminded me of the microphone Elvis used, or something from a Jerry Anderson show. But the tower did serve a purpose. It was in the tower that light bulbs would be tested, so you can imagine that the area around it would have been bathed in light, but not for very long. At the outbreak of the war, the tower was subject to blackout conditions, and also became a lookout point for the Royal Observer Corps. Remember them? They do pop up later in this video. By 1970, Luma was a private company and had moved its production back to Sweden, and Glasgow's Luma Towers was up for sale. It went through a number of owners before it became Caravan Land, a caravan showroom which would often have two caravans on display high up in the tower. It is as Caravan Land that I first knew the building, but not because it was selling caravans. When I first became aware of the building, it was those fleeting glimpses from the motorway as we passed by it in the 1980s. By that time the building was in dereliction. It barely had an intact window, but it did have that great Caravan Land sign on its front elevation. It was a sad sight, and not a great advert for Glasgow and the visitors to the city who arrived from the airport. Demolition of the building was proposed, and that's almost how it ended. Thankfully, the Linthouse Association, which was formed in 1975 as one of the first community-controlled housing associations, stepped in with a plan to save the building and convert it into housing. The project took just over a year to complete and was officially opened on the 24th of October 1996. It is fantastic that Luma Towers managed to survive. The Art Deco period was so short between the wars, and what was built in this style in Glasgow was rare to start with, so to be able to save it from demolition was really important. Almost as important as hitting that like and subscribe button, just saying. But the next story is from a time after the war, where not just Luma towers, but every single building and mankind itself was at threat of being destroyed. From the bright lights of the Luma tower to a relic of the Cold War, and all I've got to do is cross Shield Hall Road. Thousands of people pass through this junction each hour, and it's not exactly a quiet road, but I bet most of the people who pass by have no idea what's here. In the bushes, just beyond the perimeter fence of Cardonald Park, is a fenced off compound with a barbed wire top. It's clear that people are not supposed to be inside this compound, but it's not survived the Neds, so I think I'm going to go in for a look. This is another time where I'm using my idiot training, so I'm not encouraging you to explore the site. Come here and hurt yourself or get arrested, it's not my fault. I visited it, so you don't have to. The only features you're going to see on top of the site are these two small green concrete boxes and a black pipe, lost in amongst the weeds. But what exactly are they? The story starts back in 1925. The Royal Observer Corps operated from the 29th of October 1925 and were an important part of Britain's civil defence. Manned by volunteers, their main task was to observe, identify and track enemy aircraft when air warfare became a thing. Throughout World War I and II, the volunteers would watch the skies on the lookout for enemy aircraft, which is why the tower of the Luma building became so important that it was designated a Royal Observer Corps lookout post during World War II. At the end of World War II, the Royal Observer Corps took on a new responsibility. From 1955, as well as tracking aircraft, the volunteers were tasked with detecting and reporting the effects of a nuclear explosion. They would record and report fallout levels, and this is where these small concrete cubes became important. Thankfully, it has never got that far, but it was important to be prepared if it had. The truly incredible part of the site is not the bit you can see, it's what's underneath. The larger cube is in fact the entrance to an underground bunker. Now the metal hatch at the top should be completely sealed shut and locked, but just like the fence, the local Neds seem to have got in. I don't know what damage has been done, because there is a limit to even my stupidity, so that as a ladder I will not be using. There might be wombles or something down there. As scary as this ladder looks, it is hard to imagine just how scary it would have been for those Royal Observer Corps volunteers had the warning sirens been sounding and the apocalypse was imminent. This is a picture of this actual post, taken by Nick Catford and borrowed from the Subterranea Britannica website. You can see just how cramped it is underground. I don't imagine it's as neat and tidy as this anymore, now that the Neds have got in, but this is how it looked before the equipment was taken away when the post was closed. In the event of a nuclear attack, 3 volunteers would be expected to rush to this post and lock themselves in. They would then communicate the location and strength of the explosion, and then record fallout levels in the following days, before reporting the findings back to group headquarters. Imagine leaving your family and friends at the outbreak of war to crawl down a hole. The posts were cold, damp and sparse, with no running water, no mains electricity, a chemical toilet and a 6-watt light bulb. This is deemed the minimal requirements for keeping the volunteers alive. Although to be honest, if you were near ground zero, you probably wouldn't be alive for very long. There's a lot more info about the Royal Observer Corps posts and their locations on the Subterranean Britannica website. I will post their link in the description below. By 1995, the Royal Observer Corps was disbanded, as technology had taken over and finances didn't allow for the upkeep of all the posts. This post was officially closed in 1991 and is now owned by Ward and Caroline Westwater, who had restored the post, but looking at the opened hatch and all the rubbish at the bottom, I wouldn't like to think what condition it is in now. I feel like I've now depressed you all thinking about nuclear war, especially given the uncertainty some foreign politicians are creating as I make this video in 2025. But remember this: the human race has continued to survive through plagues, wars, and 1970s fashion trends. So keep smiling as I take you to a Glasgow ruin that this time is above the ground, and I'll also tell you about a border dispute which took place a lot closer to home. You may not have known about the Royal Observer Corps Post, which is not a surprise, but if you've shopped at the Braehead Shopping Centre or visited IKEA, there's a good chance you've seen the remains of Shields House on King's Inch Road. And before you tell me that I've gone too far and that this is Renfrew, not Glasgow, I need to tell you about the Boundary Battle of 1999. Shields House has stood here since the 1830s. It has watched the building of King George V Dock in 1931. Its neighbour on the other side was Braehead Power Station, built in 1946, but that closed in 1982, and it is now the site of Braehead Shopping Centre. When built, it was surrounded by farmland as far as the eye could see.
I remember when this was all farmland as far as the eye could see.
The shopping centre was getting ready to open in 1999, but an argument was brewing between Glasgow and Renfrewshire council areas. The boundary ran straight through the middle of the site, shown here in green. Keen to earn 100% of the revenue from the site, Renfrewshire Council petitioned to have the boundary moved, and in 2002, a local government boundary commission ruled in their favour, and Glasgow shrank. The boundary now is the chain link fence at the side of King's Inch Drive. So by mere metres, Shields House is in Astonishing Glasgow. When first built, it was part of the estate of the Glasgow tobacco merchant Alexander Spears. This house is all that remains of Shield Farm and Spears' estate, as his country mansion, Eldersley House, was demolished in 1924. Originally surrounded by barns and working buildings to the back of this grand Georgian farmhouse, it has to be said that farming must have been very profitable, as this is quite a grand house for a farmer. Or at least it would have been. Sadly now an empty shell after being gutted by fire, it is supported by a scaffold frame. But it is Category B listed, and hopefully someday the right person will step in and rescue it. Though they're going to have to be very patient or completely deaf, as the scrap metal yard is now right at your back door. So now you know the story of a few more of Glasgow's buildings and a Cold War relic hiding in plain sight. Thank you very much for watching, and a special thank you to the Govan Reminiscence Group for reminding me about the Royal Observation Corps Post. If you want to help me make more episodes of Astonishing Glasgow, the easiest way is to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps a lot and it's completely free. If you want to grab some merch, have a look on the Spreadshirt page. Links are below where you can grab yourself a t-shirt, hoodie, sticker or mug. New designs are being added all the time. If you'd like to leave a direct donation, hit that super thanks button. Every penny is gratefully received, and these are the Stoughton bunch that left donations after the last episode. If you'd like to get in touch, use the comments section or head over to my Facebook and Instagram pages. All the links are below. Thank you all again very much for watching. I'll see you next time in Astonishing Glasgow. Right, I'm away for a light lunch. Probably something cold. See ya.